Hello to everybody out there on the internet and or on the podcast, wherever you're tuning in from. Welcome to the next conversation that we're having as part of Empowerthon, which is the inaugural fundraiser for Parent Tween Foundation. So first things first, Rebekah Lara, thank you so much for being with us today. I'm super excited about the topic that you proposed about learning from our children.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited too.
Absolutely. So if you've never heard of Parent Tween Foundation, you're probably like, what is this whole Parent Tween thing? Well, the Parent Tween Foundation is the nonprofit leg of the Parent Tween Connection. We connect communities of parents with communities of professionals who can support them. But oftentimes, there's still a pretty big financial gap between families and the help that they can get or that they would like to get. So, our mission is to help bridge that financial gap. So, Empowerthon is part summit, part fundraiser. What does that mean? It means, listeners, there will be a shameful request to ask you for a donation when we're done today as a way to say thank you to Rebekah for the time that she's offering and the insight that she's offering. We are streaming live to our Facebook group, our YouTube channel, and our LinkedIn page. If you're in our Facebook group or would like to be in our Facebook group, you can ask us questions there as we chat. And if you're tuning in on LinkedIn or YouTube, if we see conversation that comes up afterwards, we will get back to you there as well. So, Rebekah, you are a coach for entrepreneurial moms, yes?
Yes.
Helping them navigate this cray-cray of being a mom and the cray-cray of being an entrepreneur and the special kind of cray-cray that comes about when you're both.
Yes, exactly.
And so when you proposed this topic about lessons from my daughter, my initial thought was, wow, I wonder what my mom learned from me. Unfortunately, at this point, my mother has passed, and so I can't ask her in the way that your children could ask you. And so, but I was intrigued about like, hey, what do other parents learn from their kids that I might, through conjecture, think my mom might have learned in the process? So I know this came to you very much from personal experience. So why don't we start there, give listeners an understanding of kind of how this all came to be?
Yeah, great question. So, like you, my mom has passed as well. So I want to learn what I couldn't learn from her in my current experience. And this all started, this shift in the way I'm thinking about my relationship with my daughters, when my oldest daughter went into acute liver failure, which resulted in multiple organ failure. She was on life support for 4 weeks. I still get goosebumps as I say that out loud. This was back
I
in
just did.
still every day. It's been over 5 years now since that happened. And the good news, I'll just fast forward a minute. She is doing really well today and has recovered.
Good.
But in the moment, obviously, that she became sick, it was very sudden. It was on my birthday in the middle of a play date. We thought, it was just a regular old day. I thought it was my special birthday day. And life just literally turned upside down. It just like out of nowhere. And obviously in the first couple of weeks, it was just very traumatic and we were just trying to survive. But through that whole experience, which resulted in 74 days in the hospital, my husband and I living in the hospital with her, taking turns because we have 2 younger daughters who were at home. I had very supportive sisters and a few friends that pitched in and helped us so that he and I could be with our daughter in the hospital. But so it was 74 days in the hospital, 3.5-year recovery at home, which she was on oxygen 24/7, feeding tube, wheelchair, private nurse in our home overnight, private nurse at school with her for a long time. There was just a lot, again, goosebumps. The amazing thing though is that she recovered. And she recovered fully back to her baseline. And I say baseline because she does have other chronic medical issues that were completely unrelated to the liver failure, by the way. But the biggest gift that I took away from that experience, which many people would be like, what kind of gift could you ever get from that experience?
Right.
And in the middle of all that, by the way, I had tremendous like victim mentality of like, why her, why us, why is this happening, life's not fair, like normal thoughts that a lot of us would think. But at some point I realized that even after she was home with us and like our life was so different, like having a daughter suddenly on oxygen in a wheelchair is just like, what happened? I realized that that mindset wasn't serving me, it wasn't serving her.
Mhm.
And then I, like, realized, like, "Oh my gosh," like, she's teaching me she's the best teacher I have right now, because through it all, she was not saying, "Why me?" She was not asking any of those questions. She did not have that same mentality that I did. She was super brave, super strong, very resilient, had the best attitude ever. Just truly a miracle. She got nicknamed in the PICU by the ICU nurses, "Tough Cookie," because she literally, it's just, I don't know how an 8-year-old could be that tough, but she was, and she still is.
Right.
And so that's when I paused and realized that, like, literally, I don't have all the answers. Never really thought I did, but as a parent, you kind of feel like maybe you should.
Mhm.
And I realized that, you know what, I just need to look at her and let her guide this and learn from her so I can support her better than I could if I just tried to look at my own brain.
Right. So, in terms of helping other folks learn to learn from their kids more without having to go through 74 days in the hospital and acute issues, right?
Right, right. We don't want that for anyone.
No, no, certainly not. Where do you think this concept for parents of I need to know everything comes from?
I mean, that's a great question, but I think as parents, you feel like you're supposed to know, because you're the adult, you're the leader, you're the role model, and you're supposed to have all the answers. And that's a lot of pressure for any
Mhm,
of us, whether you have sick kids or, you know, typical developing kids, it doesn't matter. Like, being a parent can be hard.
mhm,
And we feel like we always have to be in charge and setting everything, every standard.
mhm,
But I have 3 girls with special needs, all varying kinds. And I've just learned that, like, if I haven't been through that journey myself, like,
mhm,
who am I to say that I know the best,
mhm.
And even though they're 10 or 11 or 8 or whatever time age they were, it's like they deserve the respect too of knowing what's best for them. Obviously we're still guiding them and
Sure.
making the final decisions on their safety and
Mhm,
health, but a lot of times they communicate what they truly need. And
mhm,
yeah, that's been helpful for me as a parent to think of it more as a collaboration,
mhm.
um, and giving them a voice.
Well, and being the daughter of a mom who was very much a if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy household,
Mhm.
but also mother knows best.
Yep.
We fell into a lot of battles over the years, at least it felt like it, of um her believing that what she believed was right and me believing that what I believed was right.
Mhm.
And what I can say, and I actually said this at her services, I never questioned that she loved me. I never questioned that she wanted what was best for me. But her definition of what was best and my definition of what was best for me frequently did not align.
Yeah.
And she never could quite let go of that idea of I'm the mother, you're the child, and therefore I know better. So I like the fact that you're saying like, hey, they deserve a certain amount of autonomy. They deserve a certain amount of respect. Like, yes, there is a place that, especially if they're younger, like you are
Yep.
responsible for getting them as far into life alive as possible and
Right.
healthy and well, right? But if you've got somebody who's really stuck in that, you mentioned like the collaboration and working with them. Do you have any other suggestions of how to let go of that? Because that's
Mhm.
not it's not a recipe for a healthy approach in any relationship. And I think mother-daughter relationships have some of their
Mhm.
unique challenges to begin with.
Yes, exactly. Um, so yeah, how to let go of that. I mean, it's definitely a mindset shift, and it takes a little, like, bravery on the parents' part of, like, releasing some of that, like, control.
Mhm.
Not saying let your kids run wild and do whatever they want, like, but I'm also a former teacher, so that experience has served me too, to know that children, even when they're misbehaving, it's like their way of communicating
Mhm.
that something's not going right for them, or they're
Sure.
struggling in some way. And so I have daughters with mental health diagnoses. So I'm trying to always keep that at the front of my mind that like when there's a meltdown or someone's, throwing a tantrum, it's not because they want to be bad or
Mhm.
disobedient or whatever it is. Um, it's they're trying to communicate. And so the more I listen and like pause and really to like try to take in what's going on in the situation, the better I can help them. I don't, like I said, like I don't know what's going on in their body and their brains. And like I'm trying to let them share that with me so we can like find the best path forward together.
Mhm.
So I don't know if
So
that
if we're
answered your
practicing,
question.
yeah, well, because I think there's a lot of folks who can get hung up on that,
Mhm.
because of the societal norms and such that, or just patterns of behavior or thinking that have been passed down from prior generations. That the expectation is that there's that the mom or the dad is
Yeah.
supposed to know everything, and that if it's somehow a sign of weakness or incompetence
Yeah.
or something, or like it reflects poorly on me in some fashion if I
Mhm.
don't know everything somehow,
Yeah.
some way. So if we can start to chip away at that block and open ourselves up to not needing to have that control, the next step, it seems like, is opening up to actually letting in. Like, it's one thing to not always be imposing, right?
Right.
But then, like, the next thing is like, how do I get okay learning from a 6-year-old or from an 8-year-old or from a 10-year-old whose brain isn't fully formed yet? Like
Mhm.
those kinds of things. Because I can imagine my mom having said this 30 some odd years ago.
Right. 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 And I guess like we don't want to take it so literally, like they're like, saying words that are teaching us things, but it's just um, like getting past the belief that mom knows everything or this adult knows everything that's best for the child, and just being open to other possibilities. You know what I mean? And being open to like you just mentioned, like I think a lot of it comes as a parent from feeling like you are in like the insecurity of like I should know how to do this for them. I should have all the answers. And I think the main thing that's important is that we just have the intention of wanting to support them, right? We
Hmm.
don't have to have all the answers. We can look elsewhere for support, including our children, but also other trusted professionals, and
Hmm.
make it more of a collaborative process for everyone involved. And I think children, like I find, because I'm not perfect at this, I'm still
Hmm.
practicing it myself.
Hmm.
I have a daughter with a mood disorder, and I have just learned that when I do pause and hear her more, that she knows that even if I don't get it right, that my intention, like you said, is like that I love her and I care about her and we're trying to figure this out together.
Hmm.
And that has really strengthened our relationship. And there's less, head-to-head battles, and
Hmm.
it feels more like we just came up with like here's like a regular everyday issue like swim team. They're all on swim team and two of them are new to the swim team and it's scary for them. And my one daughter is a little nervous about the depth of the pool and things like that. And it's like instead of forcing her saying you have to do this because you signed up, it's like we're trying to figure out a way to like make her feel more comfortable because she's not protesting because she is trying to misbehave. She's protesting because there's fear and anxiety beneath it. And so when I pause and listen to her, then I can help support her better.
So that takes us to the next point that you wanted to make, which is how to learn or how to listen to your children even when they're not talking. So, and I am going to give a little bit of a shout out. We did have a conversation with Deb Porter from Hearing Out Life's Drama, where she was talking expressly about how to listen in a conversation. So there are some things there, and I'm curious to see, your suggestion. I imagine there's going to be some overlap, but I like what you talk about, or the point that you made of like listening even when they're not talking.
Yeah. So again, I'm just a mom. I'm not like a therapist or trained professional, but from my experience both in the classroom and as a parent, again, like I was talking about tantrums, it's like kids have tantrums or break down and cry and have these big emotions when they don't know how to express themselves with words. And I didn't get that at first. It took me some learning. But I realized that like that is their way of communicating. It's not conscious. They're not saying, I'm going to do this. But like, for example, one of my daughters, we went to Disney World like for the first time in 2022. We had planned this for years, and then the pandemic came in between it all. And we just really wanted this family trip. And with my daughter's illness, like literally, I've been wanting to do this for like 6, 7 years. So we finally get there. And I thought that it was going to be this magical experience. And many parts of it were. But my daughter struggles when there are crowds. She's very sensory sensitive. And so heat, crowds, noise, those things trigger her. And she was having huge meltdowns. And it seemed like it was about an ice cream bar. She was having a meltdown because she chose another snack, and then her sister got the ice cream bar, and then she wanted an ice cream bar. And on the surface, it looks like a kid who just wants more treats, right? And so as a parent, my first instinct was like, but I just got you this, like, can't you be grateful kind of thinking in my head. But then I realized like, no, this is like, I had to pause and calm myself down. But I realized, no, she was just getting overwhelmed from the day. It was crowded, it was hot, it was raining. She had a rain poncho on, which physically did not feel good on her body. And that was her way of like showing us. So yeah, those are those like nonverbal or unintentional cues that they're giving us that it's helpful to pause and really question, like, why are they doing this?
Right. So that it seems like that falls kind of in alignment. I don't know if you and I have had this conversation, but folks who've tuned in for other conversations, a lot of what we do at Parent Tween Connection is based on what I call the foundations of connection. And these are on our website if you want to download them. But they're basically, it came out of a conversation that I had with myself about why my SAT and ACT students would often feel more comfortable talking with me about things, or talking to me first before they were ready to talk to their folks. And one of the E in connection is actually to explore. And one of the questions that I like to add into that is, well, explore and then also challenge your truths, as in like the child is throwing a tantrum over an ice cream cone. Like that is what seems to be apparent.
Right.
But for both exploring and challenging your truths, going like, okay, is that really true? Is the tantrum really about the ice cream cone or the new pair of shoes or the fact that I won't let her stay out past curfew or whatever the case is? Like that's how it's presenting. But let's dig in and think about like, hey, what else could be going on here? What else could be contributing along the way?
I love that.
So I like how that's such an easy example to recognize because we see kids throwing tantrums in Target all the time, right? And like everyone around is like, that mother needs to get that kid under control. And it's like, okay, really? Number one, the first N in connection is non-judgment. So stop being a judgy jerk, right? But secondly, like, okay, but let's explore. And I think we can do that for the children in our spheres, but also just the ones that we engage with along the way as well.
Yeah.
Talk to me more, or share with us more about you've talked about collaboration a ton and taking a very collaborative approach with your kids. Can you give us some more examples, either that you've navigated or that some of the moms that you've worked with have navigated with their kids to get through difficult times?
Yeah, great question. The experience that pops in my head right now, because it's fresh, it just happened to me and my family this week. Again, is something that maybe a lot of families can relate to. I keep mentioning swim team. 2 of my girls are new to it, and there's resistance, there's protest over going to the meet. And so again, instead of like putting my foot down, as they say, and like demanding that they follow through on their commitment, which is my ultimate goal. I do want them to follow through because they actively signed up. It was their choice. And they said, yes, I want to do this. And we purchased it. And so obviously I want to teach them like the follow through, but not by force. So we're trying to work through it this week collaboratively between us as a family of like, well, how can we move forward and like support you?
Mhm.
What would make you feel comfortable and not afraid of the water? Like, let's talk to your coach, like get everyone on board so that
Mhm.
we can, follow through on this commitment. And not that you have to do swim team for the rest of your life, but like, let's follow through with this season, give it a
Mhm.
fair shot. And, teach them growth mindset as well. Like, you can't do this yet, right? So, like, I'm trying to collaborate with them and figuring out ways, like, it's hard for you now. And I understand and I hear you and I want to validate that and let you know that I'm listening. But
Mhm.
also, like, how can we plan together to get to move forward and grow and
Mhm.
progress? So that's like a real life example that we're living and breathing right now. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'll throw one out if you don't mind.
Yeah, I love that.
Again, I don't have kids, but a whole host of my friends do. And with current teens' obsession with YouTube, there's an answer
Mm.
for like there's a YouTube for everything at this
Yep.
point, right? So I know one family, um, was navigating some chore management,
Mm.
shall we say, which I know is a question in a lot of families. What kind of chores should my 12-year-old, 14-year-old, whatever, 16-year-old be doing? And this one mom just got to a point where she was at her wits' end and she just was like, I just can't do this anymore. Like, I have tried everything. And she finally went to the kiddo and was like, okay, you can have your phone back for X time frame. The only thing that you can find or that you can do is you can go on YouTube and you can find chore charts or you can just find
Mhm.
some kind of like creative chore management system, whatever you want to do. But you need to come up with a solution to this because mama is tired, mama is exhausted, mama is out of ideas.
Yes.
So it is your turn. Here is the end goal. You are welcome to find ways to accomplish it as long as it gets done. I really don't care how it gets done, right?
Yep.
And so, what that makes me think back to your point of the parents don't have to have all of the answers. Just because
Mhm.
we're the ones with the fully formed frontal lobe doesn't mean we have to know it all.
Yeah.
And that if we just set and we look at it more like management as opposed to domination, and the
Yeah.
domination isn't even the right word, but
I
like
know what you mean.
dictatorship, right? Like
Mhm.
authoritarian approach to things, they might come up with some ideas on how to approach a situation that we never would have thought of.
Yes. Yeah, and I think about that, like, exactly what you're saying. It's almost the same as being a coach, right? Like, I don't have all the answers for my clients. I am
Mm-hmm.
their guide. I'm helping them figure it out for themselves and the way that works best for them and their business. And so I've taken that mentality and like trying to apply that to my kids. Like you said,
Mm-hmm.
like it's funny you bring up YouTube because my oldest daughter who loves swim and isn't trying to quit um, is struggling with one of her flip turns. And so I'm like, well, how can we like what's an idea for like making you feel more confident or like, how can we improve? And she's like, I'll look for videos on YouTube. I'm like, perfect.
Absolutely.
So yesterday
Absolutely.
she was doing that before her meet. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Well, and it's not necessarily the norm for us to go to YouTube in our generation.
Mhm.
And for some of us it may be, but it wasn't a thing that existed when we were kids. So going to
Yes.
YouTube for a solution, when I think YouTube, I think like workshops or seminars or to conversations like this, or I think like stupid cat videos. You
Right.
know what I mean? And it's only since I actually started hosting these on YouTube that I've started thinking about that. Otherwise, I'm like, what's the point? Like, why would I go there? But there's a YouTube for everything,
Yes.
you know? So, all right. So we've talked about parents can step back from the feeling of needing to know everything and then open up to exploring and being like, what's underneath this? What can I
Mhm.
learn from the kiddos? Like you said, not so much in the words that come out of their mouths, but like in the way that they show up and such. Um, which also is listening, not just what they're saying, but like what else is going
Mhm.
on. If we know that tags are an issue and there's a sweatshirt that we just put on them with a tag, that's going to be a problem. And it's not really about the ice cream, it's about the raincoat, as you mentioned.
Mhm.
And then really being collaborative with them to find solutions to tough situations. Any final thoughts for families before we head over and out?
Yeah, I would just say, be open to exploring these new ways. It can be uncomfortable. it might be a different way to think about things, and different from the way we were brought up, like you and I are saying. So it was a shift that took some time for me to gradually get there, and um, just trust yourself and give yourself lots of grace in the process too. Like I said, I'm still practicing this. I'm not perfect at it. I still get triggered myself. We're all human, right? So at the end of the
Mhm.
day, just remember you're human as a parent. Your children are human, and having big emotions
Mhm.
is natural. And just give each other lots of grace in the process.
And I think the thought that comes up for me on that is, as I mentioned in a conversation I just had with William Zenobia, we were talking about navigating some step parenting challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Thought that came up for me then was like, like for you right now, Rebecca, like you've never before been the mom of a 14-year-old.
Right.
And even when your younger kids get to 14, you will not have been the mom of those 14-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
And any parent who has more than one child, even if you have the same DNA contribution, they ain't the same kid.
Nope.
What works for one doesn't work for another. And so, looking at it and going, one of the points that we made in that conversation with William is like, if a parent acknowledges, hey, I don't know everything, it's okay. Or even if there's a circumstance in which an apology to the kid is appropriate, that teaches growth mindset.
Yep.
Because it gives them permission. Well, if mom made a mistake, then it's okay for me to make a mistake as well, which is it's a hard lesson for some kids to learn. So.
Yeah, and us parents too.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I love
Awesome. So this is the point in the conversation where I say thank you to you, Rebecca, and I say to any listeners tuning in, I told you there was going to be a shameless request for a donation. If you've gotten some good information here, and I don't know how you couldn't have, the link to Rebecca's donation page is in all of the places that you could possibly find us. The best way that you can say thank you is by following it and making a contribution. $5, $500. We don't discriminate. We say thank you for all donations. But we do have a little bit of a friendly contest going on amongst our speakers that whoever our fundraisingist speaker is before June 18th, which is Father's Day this year here in the US, whoever that fundraisingist speaker is, we will donate 20% of proceeds from their link to a student or like a kid or family focused nonprofit of their choice. And so, Rebecca, you had nominated Youth 360. Can you give them a shout out and share what they do and why you want to support them?
Yes, they are a local organization, nonprofit here in the community where I live, and they support children with substance prevention education, substance abuse prevention, which I think is very necessary, especially as a mom with kids with mental health diagnoses. I'm trying to support my kids in a healthy way so that they don't self-medicate someday.
For sure. Awesome. I love it. And I'm going to say thank you. And again, anybody who's listening in, if you haven't yet, please do consider making a donation. The links are going to be live forever. So even if you're catching this 5 years from now, that link should still work. It's just that our fundraising contest, if you will, is going to end on June 18th of 2023. So Rebecca, thank you for your time and your knowledge and your willingness to admit that you don't know everything, and that's okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And thanks for your time. I look forward to having you back again someday.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.